It also describes how Pradyumna killed Shambhara and returned home with a wife. Kamadev Kupad, an expansion of Lord Vasudeva, had been burned to ashes by Lord Shiva's anger. And reborn as a part and parcel of Pradyumna from the womb of Rukmini. A demon named Shambhara, thinking Pradyumna enemy, kidnapped him from the maternity room even before he was 10 years old. Shambhara threw Pradyumna in the ocean and returned to his kingdom. A powerful fish swallowed Pradyumna and was caught by fishermen in a net. They presented this huge fish to Shambhara. When his cooks cut it open, they found a child within the belly. The cooks gave the infant to the maidservant Mayavati, who was astonished to see him. Just then Narada Muni appeared and told her who the infant was. Mayavati was actually Kamadev's wife, Rati Devi. While waiting for her husband to reborn in a body, she had taken employment as a cook in the household of Shambhara. Now that she understood who the infant was, she began to feel intense affection for him. After a very short time, Pradyumna grew to youthful maturity, enchanting all the women with his beauty. Once, Rati Devi approached Pradyumna and playfully moved her eyebrows in a conjugal mood. Addressing her as his mother, Pradyumna commented that she was putting aside her proper maternal mood and behaving like a passionate girlfriend. Rati then told Pradyumna who they both were. She advised him to kill Shambhara, and to help him, she instructed him in the mantras known as Mahamaya. Pradyumna went to Shambhara and, after angering him with various insults, challenged him to fight, upon which Shambhara angrily took up his club and marched outside. The demon tried various magic spells against Pradyumna, but Pradyumna fended them off with his Mahamaya mantras, and then beheaded Shambhara with his sword. At that moment, Rati Devi appeared in the sky and took Pradyumna away to Dwarka. When Pradyumna and his wife entered the inner chambers of Krishna's palace, the many beautiful ladies there thought he was Krishna himself, so much that his appearance and dress resembled the Lord. Out of shyness, the ladies ran here and there to hide themselves, but after a while they noticed small differences in Pradyumna's and Krishna's appearance. And once they understood that it was not Lord Krishna, they gathered around him. When Rukmini Devi saw Pradyumna, she was overwhelmed with motherly love, and milk began to flow spontaneously from her breast. Noting that Pradyumna looked exactly like Krishna, she became eager to find out who he was. She remembered how one of her sons had been abducted from the maternity room. If he was still alive, she thought, he would be the same age as Pradyumna standing before me. While Rukmini reflected in this way, Lord Krishna arrived in the company of Devaki and Vasudeva. Although the Lord understood the situation perfectly well, he remained silent. Then Narada Muni arrived and explained everything. Everyone was amazed to hear the account and embraced Pradyumna in great ecstasy. Because Pradyumna's beauty so closely resembled Krishna, the ladies in a maternal relationship with Pradyumna could not help thinking of him as their conjugal lover. He was, after all, the exact reflection of Lord Krishna, and there was a natural way for him to see them in this way. Now we have to go to the verse, right? Can't see the book. That Saeva Jato Vaidarbhyam. Text one I know, but I'm sorry this machine is really acting up. There we go. Shishuku Vacha. Right? Kamastu Vasudevamso Dagda Prag Rudra Manyuna Deho Papataye Bhuyas Tameva Pratya Pradyata Shishukuvacha Kamastu Vasudevamso Dagda Prag Rudra Manyuna Deho Papataye Bhuyas Tameva Pratyapadyata. Shishukuvacha Kamastu Vasudevamso Dagda Prag Rudramanyana Deho Papadyate Bhuya Tameva Pratyapadyata. Shishukuvacha Kamastu Vasudevamso Dagda Prag Rudramanyama Deho Papadyate Bhuya Tameva Pratyapadyata. Any ladies? Not very many here, huh? Mukhabacha Kamastu Vasudevamso Prag Rudra Dagdo Papadyate Bhuyas. Sri Shukuvacha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Kama, Cupid, 2, and Vasudev, of Lord Vasudev, Amsha, the expansion, Dagda, burned, Prak, previously, Rudra, of Lord Shiva, Manyuna, by the anger, Deho, a body, upapadyate, in order to obtain, bhuya, again, tan, to him, Lord Vasudeva. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami said, Kamadev, Cupid, an expansion of Vasudeva, had previously been burned to ashes by Rudra's anger. Now, to obtain a new body, he merged back into the body of Lord Vasudeva. Purport. In the Krishna Sandarbha, Anucheda 87, Srila Jiva Goswami cites the following verse of the Gopal Tapani Upanishad 2.40 to prove that Pradyumna, who is the son of Krishna, and Rukmini is the same Pradyumna who is a member of Lord Krishna's eternal fourfold plenary expansion, the Chaturvyuha. Yatra so samstito Krishnas Tribi Sakya Samahita Raman Ruda Pradyumna Rukminya Sahito Vibhu. There in Dwarka, the Almighty Lord Krishna resides in the company of his three plenary expansions, Balaram, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna, and his potency Rukmini. The Krishna Sandarbha goes on to explain who, with reference to the present verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that the Cupid, when Rudra burned up with his anger, is a demigod subordinate to Indra. This demigod Cupid is a partial manifestation of the prototype Cupid, Pradyumna, who was a plenary expansion of Vasudeva, the demigod Cupid, being unable to attain a new body on his own, entered within the body of Pradyumna. Otherwise, Cupid would have to remain in a perpetual state of disembodiment as a result of Rudra's having incinerated him with his anger. In his English rendering of Srimad Bhagavatam 1:14-30, Srila Prabhupada confirms the absolute status of Pradyumna, Lord Krishna's first son. Pradyumna and Aniruddha are also expansions of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are also Vishnu Tattva. At Dwarka, Lord Vishnu is engaged in his transcendental pastimes along with the plenary expansions, namely Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Therefore, each and every one of them can be addressed as the personality of Godhead. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Pradyumna took birth from the womb of Rukmini before Sri Krishna's marriage to Jambavati, and the Lord's other marriages took place. Subsequently, Pradyumna returned from Shambhara's palace. But before Sukadeva Goswami tells of Krishna's pastimes with his other wives, he will narrate the entire story of Pradyumna for the sake of continuity. Since Srila Sridhar Swami further notes that Kamadev, or Cupid, now appearing within Pradyumna, is a portion of Vasudeva. Is a portion of Vasudeva because he is manifest from the element Chitta, consciousness, which is presided over by Vasudeva, and also because Cupid is the cause of material generation. As the Lord states in the Bhagavad-gita 10:28, Prajapatis chasmi Kandarpa. Of progenitors, I am Kandarpa, Cupid. Om Agana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksu Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupkadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta. Namaste, Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaur Avani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desa Tarane. Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tuishe Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi. So, this is quite mystical according to our, experience. All this changing bodies in not ordinary ways. How could a baby be kidnapped from the maternity home of Krishna's house, right? Because they must have very good security there. But it's a lila, pastime. It always has some purpose. So we know Pradyumna, he was the commander-in-chief of the Dwarka's armies, a great soul. He's almost the same as Krishna. I mean, all the wives, they thought he was Krishna at first. Looked so much like him. He was really in Krishna's image. We're also born in Krishna's image, but only because we have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, Otherwise we don't really look like Krishna, right? But we're in the image, the reflection, same type of form. So Krishna, he married with Rukmini, we know that story. It was an adventure. I was talking to some ladies in America, they were saying, daughter asked them so many questions that they can't answer. So I said, like what? So that, that in America there's so much kidnapping. So it's in the news all the time, on television news. Somebody was kidnapped today, almost every day in every town. So the daughter must be, maybe high school or younger, is saying, why did Krishna kidnap Rukmini? Kidnapping is bad. Because kidnapping is the big crime, and often they kill the person they kidnap, or they want so much money to give it back, and they make movies about it and everything. And they couldn't answer that because they never read the book. They're devotees, initiated, but they haven't even read the Krishna book. So it wasn't an ordinary kidnapping. The word is used there, kidnapping, but nowadays kidnapping means, violent, like grabbing someone off the street or at gunpoint, things like that. It's a common thing. Terrorists, that's how they make their money. Some countries, if a citizen is kidnapped, they'll just pay the kidnappers. Some kidnappers, I met a guy in Nigeria, he's working in the oil field, so they were especially kidnapping the oil workers because the oil companies are so rich. He said he'd been kidnapped 3 times, and they treated him very nicely, and the company paid $10,000 and they let him go. But you never know what's going to happen next. Anyway, Krishna's kidnapping is completely transcendental. He was requested by Rukmini, who gave him detailed instructions how to kidnap. It's not an ordinary kidnapping. It was to get her away from her demoniac brother and to have to marry demoniac Shishupal. So naturally, Krishna, he just likes to make everything exciting. And that is a great adventure, actually, Balaram's prayers and everything. So here, Pradyumna is born and thrown by the demon for some reason, thrown into the sea, swallowed by a big fish, doesn't die in the belly of a fish. Normally it'd be digested or something. Then the cooks cut the fish open. Prabhupada makes a statement in the Krishna book that demons are very fond of eating fish and meat. He doesn't say like don't eat meat or don't eat fish. Demons like, nowadays it's quite common. I saw in England many restaurants, Indian seafood. I didn't know. I was the only Indian food I ever knew when I was devotee. And then I went to Japan, and they have this Indian restaurant. So in Japan, sometimes they don't have a menu. They have like a plastic model of the thali in the window, and it has a number. Just say I want number 10 or number 4. Then I saw this puri and rice with a big chicken on it or something, and a big fish. Shocked. But there's different kinds of Indians. They're not all devotees. So we learned a lot. And then the wife had said, the cook, somehow the previous wife of Pradyumna, that would mean a very exalted position. She didn't die, but somehow she took the job of a cook. He didn't leave her any life insurance or something. So she was immediately attracted, not exactly knowing, and then she found out, the story, and then he grew up very fast, killed the demon, and they went to Dwarka, like we just read. So this is just to give us some understanding how, Janma Karma Tame Divyam, we're coming up on Janmashtami, Balaram's Purnima. There's a transcendental. And Krishna says if we can just understand the transcendental nature, we can't explain it in any way according to modern science. Think you only live once. Even when they get evidence that there's something else in the body, they don't want to believe that, something leaves the body. They say, may be something like what they call a soul, or might be something like karma, but they don't want to really admit it. You only live once means enjoy to the max, because you don't have to worry about the next life. But even this life, people that try to enjoy so much are suffering so much. So many diseases and so many, other things much worse than disease. you know, karma that's being created by all the sinful activities, wars and natural disasters, you know, corrupt governments. So we have a big mission. We have to uplift the consciousness or the vibration. A lot of talk now about Einstein said everything is vibrations. That's a fact. Everything is, so the holy name is a transcendental vibration, the Shabda Brahman, the transcendental sound vibration, which can purify all the impure sounds that are being broadcast so everywhere so much. So many, now it's much worse than ever, I don't know how people survive, actually. When I was watching television, there was 3 channels. One was educational, so I never watched that one. And they went off at midnight, except on Saturday or something. They went a little bit longer. And still, you get addicted to it. I had one disciple, and she got addicted to television. She'd grown up, and her mother was some kind of fanatic Christian, never let her watch television or anything. And then the mother went crazy and became a big sense gratifier. And then, anyway, then one day she told me, I stopped watching television. I said, why? And she saw some show. Now, later they had more shows that are kind of a little bit worthwhile. And it was about watching television. So they were talking to one boy who watched television so many hours a day. And they asked him, why do you watch television so much? And he said, there's nothing else to do. That's what they think. They don't even know what, now it's not television, it's games, right? Go to the Play Store, go to the Apple shop. It's all games. You have to search separately to find anything except games. Navina Nirda, he lives there in Silly Valley, and he knows the people that make the games. They don't let their children ever even see a screen. If they hire a babysitter, they have to contract. They will never show their screen in the house. And they have, CCTV, and if they catch them, they kick out. But still, of course, they access, They said the game has to be addictive within 15 seconds. Otherwise, they'll look for another one. Sometimes they even advertise the most addictive game. Please try this. They want to be addicted. They want to forget everything else and have focus. So we want to do that also, but focused on the holy name. It's not as easy as getting addicted to the games and intoxication or whatever people get addicted to. But Prabhupada used that term when he was asked by John Lennon, how do you know who's the most advanced devotee? Prabhupada said, whoever's the most addicted to Krishna. Devotees were wondering why Prabhupada used that word, addicted. Then they realized that John Lennon and his wife were addicted to some very powerful drugs. And Prabhupada said, we have to leave this place. They were staying at his house. But this is what we want. Like Haridas Thakur, you can't stop chanting. That's an addiction. You can't live without it. We should feel that way. We kind of know, I guess I kind of know theoretically, and I know if I don't chant, I can't make it through the day. I won't dare face the next day if I didn't chant this day, right? But we want to be chanting all the time. That takes practice. chanting or hearing. I just read one quote. Prabhupada said, going back to God, it is not so easy. It takes great determination, faith. But it's very simple. You just keep chanting the holy name, and you keep your japa every day, whatever you promised. Follow the four regular principles. Prabhupada's so merciful, he promised. He wasn't joking. I've heard devotees now say, Prabhupada didn't really mean it. It's going to take us millions of lifetimes. If we don't practice, it could take forever. If one is infected with the 10 offenses and chanting the holy name, the result of Krishna Prema is not going to come very quickly. So we have to work on that. We have to worship Lord Chaitanya, do Sankirtan, so we get purified, get free from offenses. Beg, attentive chanting, just like an addict. They can't think. In America, we had these, Prabhupada mentioned them. Back in those days, they were called winos. They live on wine. They can't even eat. We would go for food for life, and if they eat anything, bleh, they would try, but they just whine. They're brainless practically. And they just go up to people, you give me a little money, I'll get some wine, help me. And they're filthy, dirty, and Prabhupada would see them on the morning walk. And then in class he said, actually on the walk, I heard him, he said, we should be like that. We should be like them, he said, except for Krishna. We weren't attached to Krishna. He said that Rasoham apsukonteya, Prabhasmi sasti sudaya, Rasoham. He said liquid, not, usually it's water. He said, so even this wino, if he thinks of Krishna every time he drinks wine, that this taste is Krishna, he will become a great devotee. But it will take a long time. Don't try it that way. But the water, how often do we even think when we drink water? This taste is Krishna. Of course, we don't get very good tasting water nowadays. If you get really good water, you might think that, but most of the water is like, let's find something else. But the taste of anything is Krishna. And the highest taste is the holy name. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, the liquid nectar of the holy name. Anybody ever tasted like that? Devotee asked me, does it really have a taste like drinking nectar or something? Well, the great devotees say it does. And even I was in Pune and the children were eating ice cream. And one of them came and said, this chanting is better tasting than ice cream. So he got some experience. But this is it, chanting, hearing about Krishna. Chanting the Bhagavatam, that's Krishna. All these amazing stories. This one is really mystical, but the Pradyumna that appeared as Krishna's son is the Pradyumna from the Chaturvyuha, which comes from the first expansion, Balaram to Sankarshan, and Sankarshan and Pradyumna, Aniruddha. Krishna also had the son Aniruddha. Those are the original ones. There's a demigod Cupid also, but he was killed by Shiva. I'm not sure what he did. It says Rudra, anger. When the Rudras appeared out of Lord Brahma's anger, then they were just destroying everything. So Lord, he had to tell Shiva, you just go meditate until the time of annihilation comes. Then you can annihilate everything. They all have their purpose. And Krishna has arranged everything. Nothing is separate from Krishna. Now we want, what do they call it, secular government. Government has nothing to do with religion. No religion in the schools. In America, they banned prayer in the schools a long time ago, saying that there might be an atheist in the classroom, and he would be disturbed if the others are praying. The atheist is a very small percentage. They don't care about disturbing the devotees, the religious people, only the atheists. Now they're pushing their agendas and can't even mention, what kind of immorality they're trying to promote all over the world. American government went to Africa and they were trying to push these immoral things on the African government. They said, get out of here. You can do it at your place, but don't try to tell us what to do. We have our culture, we have religion. They have culture that goes back, They haven't lost it as much as the Western countries. Many things when we study the African culture in Judah Karma's book, Human Devolution, he talks a lot about one African tribe and how their traditional teachings, they have all the demigods, they have a supreme God, they have everything. How the American Indians had all that. The Indians had all that, the Hindus, everywhere in the world. And then the so-called Christians come and say that's all the devil and only one. And the Greek so-called mythology, but they had all the demigods. But they also had a supreme God that was the creator of all these demigods. But now in the Greek Orthodox Church, if someone is found out to be reading about the previous culture, they'll be kicked out of the church publicly, they'll be humiliated. It's insanity. India is fortunate to Hinduism, now we're here, but this word Hinduism is such a mishmash. But some are starting to understand because Prabhupada's preaching Sanatana Dharma. And it's coming out how so many things that everybody takes for granted were actually originated in India. I know when I was in school, all these things they said came from China. Now we're finding, but China, one devotee in China, he's written a book that's been published about 3 times, how the whole Chinese culture came from India, with all the evidence and the statues and all. And it's very popular. And the Chinese government, he teaches, he works for the government and brings businessmen to India to study the origins of Chinese culture. And they like it, because they want to get down to the government there is worried about the Western culture, so-called culture, polluting them so much. So they want to teach Buddhist culture before Buddhism. Buddha came from India. They know that. American Buddhists think Buddha came from Japan, because the first Buddhists came from Japan, but they came from India. I had a friend who was a big karate teacher in America now, and he'd been a Japan champion karate, and he was teaching that the karate origins came from India. So the Japanese Karate Association said, you can't say that. It comes from Okinawa. He said, no, I'm going to tell the truth. So he left Japan. In America, he'd say whatever he wants. Nobody cares. But so they're gradually understanding due to Prabhupada's books. So the more we spread this vibration of the holy name, the Bhagavad-gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I think especially Chaitanya Charitamrita and Prabhupada Lilamrita. People get one at the book table the other day. One girl came. She had a boyfriend from America, actually, an Indian girl. Then she saw the Lilamrita. She says, "This is his autobiography? I want to read this," she said. She bought the Lilamrita. Told her it's actually 7 volumes. The devotee who made the condensed version told me, you have to read all 7 volumes. He said, this condensed version doesn't really do the job, but at least it gives you an idea, you know. And so he knows better than anyone else, since he wrote the condensed version. But we want to know how Prabhupada worked, how he applied this knowledge in so many circumstances. Crazy drug addict people in America, big Mayavadis in India, you know, big scholars all over the world, politicians, all kinds of people. Prabhupada would deal with anyone perfectly. And they would go, even he insulted them and called them fools, and go away very happy. Because he did it out of love. And somehow they would be shocked in their conscious mind because they were big professors. There's one professor Prabhupada was talking to, and Prabhupada asked him some question. And he said, I don't know. I think it was about something about the Vedas. And Prabhupada said, he's a professor and he doesn't know. What does that mean? Swarup Damodar Maharaj, what does that mean? Swarup Damodar. He's a cheater, Prabhupada. He's a cheater, Srila Prabhupada. And the guy was right there. One of them, Rabindra Swarup, brought his professor, who was a Mayavadi, and he was studying religion, and his, you know, graduating depend on this professor. And Prabhupada just insulted him and called him a rascal and everything. Rabindra Swarup thought, you know, I'm finished. Then he met that professor like many years later. And the professor said, do you remember when I met your spiritual master? And he said, yes. And he said, that was the best day of my life. He said. So, but Prabhupada told us we can't preach like that. But we have to know. We have to know what's real. And it's all in the Bhagavatam and all in the Bhagavad-gita. We get so many questions. I get many questions from new devotees. And just because they haven't read the books, there's some older devotees also. But you have to read them and, you know, take it in. It's not just stories. It's not just something to memorize and pass the Bhakti Shastra test. You know, you have to apply it. Jnana and Vijnana. Knowledge and applied knowledge, or wisdom. I heard a very good example. What is knowledge and what is wisdom? Sometimes we get seminars like that. Some old guy, and he said, knowledge is knowing that the tomato is scientifically classified as a fruit. Wisdom is not putting the tomato in a fruit salad. Right? Nobody would want that. We put in a vegetable salad, but somehow it's called a fruit. So the world is like that. So knowledge is knowing, okay, Krishna is God, he spoke the Bhagavad-gita, rattled off a few slokas. But wisdom means, you know, you apply it in your life. You live. You think, I'm a servant of Krishna. What can I do for Krishna? It's not, we just have to keep trying. Please accept me. Please accept this. I'm no good. Prabhupada said when he installed the Radha and Krishna in Los Angeles, as the first Radha Krishna deities, small ones, he said, this is God, this is Krishna. We should be thinking, I am rotten, I am no good, I am useless, but please accept this. You know, because this is Krishna. Then the devotees, they got some plates like you get for dolls, you know, small cups and plates and everything, because the size of the deity. Prabhupada said, no, he's big. Krishna's not small. Get big plates, big servings. So now then they learn gradually. They used to, when the Jagannaths first came, they were wearing a little Jagannaths around their neck. One devotee told Prabhupada, I lost my little Jagannath. Prabhupada said, he's not little. He's the Lord of the universe. He's not little. The Murti is little. Krishna's little. So time is, was any comments or questions? Now that we know the whole chapter ahead of time.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for enlightening class. Maharaj, my doubt is, here in the purport, we are seeing the quotations from Krishna Sandarbha and other scriptures and even Prabhupada's purport to the first canto, 14th chapter, text 30, that Cupid here, Pradyumna here is an expansion of Krishna. But in Krishna book, chapter 55, Prabhupada mentions in the first paragraph only that this Pradyumna is in category of Jiva Tattva. And in Krishna book, throughout, smaller word is used, like he here is capitalized. The word used for Pradyumna here is capitalized, but in Krishna book it is not. So can you put some light on this?
What's capitalized?
Same chapter in Krishna book, Prabhupada has mentioned that this Pradyumna, son of Krishna and Rukmini, is Jiva Tattva, he is Cupid. He cannot be the quadruple Pradyumna. And pronoun for Pradyumna in Krishna book is not capitalized, but here it is capitalized.
Look in the Krishna book. Of course, there are still printing errors and things like that. Chapter 55. I mean, Cupid is capitalized? Yeah, it's Cupid is capitalized in the Krishna book here.
Cupid is capital, but the Prabhupada mentions in the paragraph is Jiva Tattva, and pronouns used for Cupid is not capitalized.
What's not capitalized? Huh? Well, it says that it's like there's a Pradyumna who's a Chaturvyuha Pradyumna. There's a demigod Cupid also, whether capitalized or not. You know, in Sanskrit there's no capitals, right? In Hindi there's no capitals, right? It's an English phenomena. So there's a lot of questions about different words, whether they should be capitalized or not, grammatical things. But it says the Cupid that was burned up by Rudra is the demigod Cupid. But then he merged into the other Cupid so he could get another body, So, like Achintya, Bhedava. We can't really put these things in, I certainly can't say why, something, because devotees were typing the Krishna book from Prabhupada's dictation. Prabhupada never looked at it until it was printed. you know, he just kept translating and saying, hurry up and give me the cassette back. So they, how do they know? So now the Krishna book has been revitalized a few times. By following, but devotees just have to make decisions like that. So I don't think it's very important myself, to picking over something like that, to know why not. Try to understand why we should surrender to Krishna. Because Prabhupada helped us to understand that that's our real position. Surrender just means, like Jayadvaita Maharaj was on an early walk in New York one time, and the policeman said, what do you have to do to be a Hare Krishna? He said, you have to give up suffering. And they went and bought some books. They thought that sounded good. And he didn't say you have to give up meat eating and gambling and intoxication. That you have to give up suffering, because those things are sources of suffering. So we're learning gradually. So the whole Cupid thing, and sometimes Krishna is called Cupid, Kamadev, right? Klim Kamadevaya, Pushpabanaya, Dhimahi is shooting flower arrows. Because everything is ultimately coming from Krishna. So Krishna has his expansions, and he expands, and then sometimes people from Vaikuntha, they expand as demigods so they can associate with Krishna when he comes to earth. All kinds of things that are, beyond our educational levels, because we've been programmed so much materialistic, mechanistic kind of considerations. They're really right on time with the bells. Yeah. Prabhupada wanted very much to have those bells on time.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned, you mentioned that like this person who is drunkard, addicted to wine, similarly we should be addicted to Krishna.
Maybe I should get a hearing aid.
Like this, Prabhupada mentioned, like the person who is addicted to wine, we should be also addicted to Krishna.
Should be what?
We should be addicted to Krishna.
Yeah.
So Maharaj, while practicing our sadhana bhakti, sometime previous conditionings comes, and we feel disheartened, hopeless. How long, how much we have to go ahead when such state of consciousness we develop. So, and we see ourselves, we see other devotees, they give up the fight of going ahead, march ahead in this battle with Maya, battle with mind, our previous samskaras. So what measures we should take care, what to avoid that, and what positive actions we should continue, that in such situation also we have determination to continue sadhana bhakti.
All right. I think you said it all, but Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Now, causeless mercy is that Krishna will accept something we do every day as Nityam, even though many hours a day we may be doing something else. Because gradually, it'll pervade our life more and more. So and if you're living in the ashram, we're pretty busy, but most devotees. So, and Krishna explains that whatever we're doing, if someone is running a business or working in a factory, you know, you can offer it all to Krishna. You can offer the results to Krishna. So that's also bhakti. It's not what we're doing, it's how we're doing it, why we're doing it. If someone is giving a big donation thinking, I will become famous, you know, as a big donor, and I'll get a tax deduction, everybody will know I'm a great devotee. It's not so great. It's still good. Hopefully they'll get purified. We have to engage people in devotional service. We have to engage ourselves. When we're preaching, many times we just have to somehow engage someone in a little bit of service, and then they make a lot of advance. So for ourselves also, we just pray to Krishna. One devotee asked Prabhupada, how can I make it? Prabhupada he was just driving away in the car and he just said, desire. Everything depends on, you know, ask and you will receive. The Bible says, search and you will find, and knock on the door and the door will open. So, you know, be careful what you look for, what you desire. You know, we have to purify our desires. The Mayavadis say become desireless, no desires. The Buddhists are Mayavadis also. Become zero, become a stone, but a desire is the only function of the soul. So we just have to, we are covered over by all kinds of stupid desires, and we just have to purify it, that I want to serve Krishna. So, you know, gradually we want prasadam, we don't want to eat anything else, right? You know, we get purified. We want to chant Hare Krishna. We don't care about all the cinema songs. But even cinema song, when they made that Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Dumarudum, you know, a lot of people were introduced to the Muhammad by that. At least one devotee I heard of, is the first time he heard the chanting of Krishna was from that movie, you know, although it was blasphemous. People forget the blasphemous part and just remember the Krishna part. So we have to just make it a mission to think of how we can spread the holy name more, how we can uplift the planet's vibration, to get to a point after a few hundred years maybe of more and more Sankirtan, more and more chanting, more and more people reading Bhagavatam, that the vibration level of the planet goes up. Demons won't be so anxious to take birth like they are now, because people are giving topmost facility to the demoniac principles. And the people, it's dividing the people. There are religious people in all religions very much against all this propaganda for transgender and homosex and, you know, whatever else they're promoting. But that will all disappear when more and more people. We see now so many young people come into the temple. Young couples, like on a date, you know, just come and sit around for hours, you know, and just kind of absorbing the atmosphere. So things are changing. In Prabhupada's time, hardly anybody did, especially young people in India. Now they're just flooding. Every time they have a youth program, you know, a few thousand is a small program. So keep on hanging there and don't never give up. All right? Keep on walking, right, towards Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. SriSriRadhaRasbihari ki jai. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Shri Gaurnitai Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Sorry I can't answer that about the capital